Welcome, RSL Nation, to a special edition of Scarf Live podcast. This opening 2018 home game match day. Our very own Real Salt Lake, after a very good showing in Dallas last week, is taking on a brand new team, the Los Angeles Football Club. You're here with your host, Adele and
Bakir,
Bakir. What's happening, buddy? It's been a while.
it has. It's been far too long. It's good to be home. It is good
Oh,
to be home.
it is good to be home. And while you're home, we end up going to Rio Tinto Stadium to support Real playing this brand new team out of Los Angeles. By the way, I had a really good chat with one of their guys last night or a couple of days ago because this is being broadcast on Saturday morning.
And
And
if
tur- turns out, um, um, turns out they're the only Los Angeles football club there is. The only Los Angeles soccer club there is because, in his words, they do not consider what he calls Carson an LA club. What do you think about that? Sounds like a little inner city or in city rivalry before they have even played their first home game.
yeah, I mean he can say whatever he wants to and call the Galaxy whatever he wants to, but at the end of the day, there is a LA team that has won multiple MLS Cups. Has the closest thing that the MLS has seen to a dynasty, and quite frankly, is one of the most powerful teams in the MLS, and it isn't the brand new one that just got started this year.
Ooh, shots fired. Are you firing shots on behalf of the Los Angeles Galaxy? What is the world coming to?
Well, I mean, I'm definitely not. It's the lesser of two evils, in my opinion. But I mean, it's he can't sit here and pretend that the Galaxy just don't exist, or that they aren't an LA team, or that nobody associates them with the city of Los Angeles. That's just not reality.
Okay, you got a really good point, man. So
I
I
think
would
it's
encourage
few.
anyone and everyone who wants to learn more about the LAFC supporter. I almost called them the LAFC Galaxy. Oh, that would have been bad. If anyone wants to learn more about how they got started, who they are, what they do, how they do, and really get a really good look into some of their behind the scenes operations, listen to our other podcast, LAFC, Heart of LAFC, against or with RSL Nation from just a few days ago. Um, Very good guys. It seems like we'll see how they do. Did you watch their game on Sunday at Seattle?
I did. I did. Uh, all things considered, I think LAFC is very, very, very lucky to be walking away with 3 points. You won't see me defend the Flounders very often, but they deserve to get at least a tie there.
They did play with a very depleted lineup. Beat the Chivas just a couple of days later, a few days later, in the Champions League. So,
They did have Champions
um,
League to worry about. That is correct.
yeah, and for the first time in a long time, it looks like three MLS teams could be moving on against three Mexican teams. But that's a whole other topic for a whole other day. What do you think about LAFC's play?
Um, I think relatively dangerous on the counter. Um, they don't really know who they are, and from what I could tell, it was a bit of like a scrambled defense for what felt like the last 40 minutes of the game. It was they were pinned back, and they were just really hoping not to concede a goal, and I think they were lucky not to. Luck eventually runs out. It you can't win an MLS Cup on luck. But luck helps. You can't win in it on luck.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely correct, man. That seems like I think the stats were something like close to 20 shots for Seattle Sounders. Their goalie was actually in the MLS Team of the Week. So that's kind of what I was telling him when we spoke a couple of days ago as well. It's going to be probably impossible for them to sustain that kind of pressure long term. So that should be a fun one to watch. One thing that did really impress me, well, three people, two things. First, they got Vela, the Mexican player, Carlos Vela, that came over from Spain, I believe, and he was a big deal. He was their first signing. I think they signed him before maybe even before they had a logo for the team yet. And man, I kind of judging by history, a lot of the times these big players come over. I kept calling him a European player, even though he's quite obviously not a European player, though he has grown up and played in European clubs since the age of 16, I believe. But he looked good. He looked real good. He played like a number 10. He was distributing. He had the one assist for the one goal they had. And he looked like the real deal. Well, your thoughts on him?
Well, I mean, yeah, it's it's an international caliber player. He occupies a DP slot for them. I'd be worried if that wasn't the case. On their behalf, it's um, it's. I think he did his job. I think he did his job well. I absolutely think he's dangerous, but I'm hoping that we put up an RSL defense that can deal with dangerous players. If they're a one-trick pony and a one-outlet kind of team, and makes the job of guarding one guy a lot easier.
Yeah, absolutely. Speaking of one guy, that he's one guy. The second item I took away from their game, at least in personnel, their wings. Man, they have two front outside wings. On one side they have this guy with the last name, was it Blessing, I believe. And on the let's see, I'll give you just a second. And yeah, on the left side they have a Latif Blessing, and on the right side, on the left side, they have Diego Rossi, the guy who scored the goal. Really, really quick, explosive little players that seem to have they seem to have they just completely chewed up that Seattle defense. Did whatever they wanted to on both sides. Could have scored a couple of other goals. I think they hit the post with just a couple of minutes into the game because they'd taken an even earlier lead. Um, are you worried at all about our outside backs? And we can discuss who we think they will be in the mid here. But what's
Yeah,
your
I mean,
take on that?
it's our defense against Dallas looked shaky for long stretches of time. We were not, I think, defensively sound, um, to put it mildly. But it's also worth looking at, Seattle's defense. It's an aging core of players. I don't think Seattle was particularly set up for success there. I think our guys are a little quicker, a lot younger. Um, I am worried that LAFC is going to get numbers forward and we won't recover on a counter, and that's how we concede a goal. But I also don't think we'll be as exposed as Seattle was. I would be shocked if that was the case. From what I've seen, LAFC looks to be trying to play a very similar style to what I think Petke's trying to get RSL to do, which is, you get your wings and your outside backs as far up the field as possible and just throw players in the attack. So that is something we should be watching for. I'm hoping that, we're prepared for that, and I'm hoping we don't get sloppy on defense, because I think we get hurt.
Absolutely. Who do you think we're playing on the outside wings? Last week we had left side. We started Phillips, and I was a little bummed until Acosta replaced him, and apparently screwed up, made the mistake that led to the wrong Silva scoring on the wrong goal. But turns out that he was actually maybe the better option out of those two. And then we had Sean Barry right on the right side.
Right.
Who do you think we're starting tomorrow?
I think Sean Barry on the right again. From what I've heard, Adam Henley is still nursing that quad injury. And I think it's going to be Damar Phillips again, and then subbed out for Danilo Costa somewhere around the 70th, 80th minute. I think it'll be very similar to what we saw against Dallas.
You like the obviously Silva and Glad in the middle. We're not holding any grudges against Silva for scoring that goal last week. And midfield of Beckerman, Krylak, Rushnyak.
As we're recording this, there are some early reports that M. Silva might not be available to play. Apparently, he's had an injury in practice today. And this is all pretty big maybes. But if that's the case, it's I think realistically Horst comes on with Glad, which does worry me a little.
Could be. Well, we'll see. We'll see what happens there. Um, Another takeaway, real quick takeaway from the LAFC game was that they got really lucky, right? Tyler Miller, the goalie, who's by the way is their backup goalie. Their primary goalie is injured before the season started. So their backup goalie, Tyler Miller, if he hadn't had the game of his life, and I really think it was the game of his life because he was a backup in the MLS before he joined LAFC, they could have conceded a whole lot more goals, right? So if I'm Petke, man, I'm pushing, I'm pressing, I'm keeping the ball in their half, I'm keeping the ball as close to their goal as possible. I'm shooting from all over the place. And you're right. The problem is that you are exposing yourself to those two quick wings in the back. How do you approach it if you're him?
I mean, yeah, it's. I think if there's one thing that I relearned watching the Dallas games, it's that RSL is not a good sit back and defend team. If we are not attacking, we will concede a goal. I agree with you 110%. It's we have a very dynamic, young, quick attack. I don't think LAFC has quite figured out what A, their team looks like to begin with, but B, specifically what their defense looks like. I really think we punish these guys tomorrow or today, depending on when we release this.
Yeah, man. Okay, so next question. Silva, Luis Silva up front didn't impress me very much last game at all. Was kind of invisible. A couple of hustle plays, but that's about it. Stick with him, or are you putting Ortuño in there?
I think stick with Silva to begin with. Maybe depending on what defensive shape LAFC takes, you bring in the new Spaniard. But overall, I think I'm hoping that Luis Silva just had kind of a bad game, because I agree with you. He was gone for long stretches of time against in the Dallas game. But I'm looking to see him, kind of connect with Plata and Jefferson Severino, and we just carve up that defense in their final third, and do those quick little passes and combine. I think the guy for that is Silva.
Love it. So basically, what you're saying is stick with what worked last week. We looked good for much of the game. We could have walked away with a couple of more goals, possibly. Let's not forget, Severino had that really good one-on-one opportunity they should have probably put away. LAFC is new. They're not too good under pressure. Keep the pressure high, keep the pressure consistent, attack with all the wings, and basically keep the same formation and the same players we had last week. Said all of that. What are you projecting on the scores for tomorrow? Excuse me. What are you projecting on the score for later today?
I think we walk away with a 3-1 win. I think the attack clicks. I think we have a great game. I think it's our home opener. I think the guys show up for it, and we just hurt this LAFC side that is a 22-man roster, which is injured at the moment. Doesn't really have an attacking identity. Doesn't really have a team identity, in my opinion. And quite frankly, they're coming into what is now a very hostile environment. Rio Tinto has become a fortress again. And 3-1's my prediction. How about you?
3-1, man. You took it right out of my mouth. I've been projecting 3-1 for a few days now. I'm feeling good about the 3-1. I do think we'll have that crazy moment of just we always have that one big defensive mistake that we remember for the rest of the year. Nick Romando always has that one big mistake that people talk about. That's that one mistake that always leads us to ask the questions like, maybe he's not as good as we thought he was. Maybe it's time to start replacing him. And then the very next game, we're like, that's why he's still good. So 3-1, and I think it should be a pretty convincing 3-1. Honestly think so. And then everyone gets really psyched and very high on the team again, and then they'll disappoint us in a few weeks. Hey, we are RSL supporters. All right, ladies and gentlemen, Thank you very much for joining us. We'll see you all at Rio Tinto Stadium very shortly. And good luck, boys.